following show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of News Talk 1450 WOL, Radio 1 Incorporated, or their management.
Good morning and welcome to Law Talk with Ethel Mitchell. Now for today's show, here's attorney Ethel Mitchell.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Law Talk. I am Ethel Mitchell. I welcome you to our discussion about the law. Welcome to listeners throughout the United States and the Caribbean who are listening to us live on lawtalkwithethelmitchell.com and WOLDCnews.com. I firmly believe that we do better when we know better. I've been a lawyer for over 30 years and can tell you the law is such a powerful force in each of our lives. In fact, it impacts everything we do. And it is the one area of life where what you don't know can actually hurt you, and what you do know can empower you. Each week, I aim to empower you. I'm going to bring you professionals who work with the law every day. We'll choose an area and explore its direct impact on your life. This show is a continuation of our series about how law impacts the affairs of the heart. Attorney Michelle C. Thomas joined us to discuss prenuptial agreements. What are they? She called them insurance. As she said, you wouldn't buy a house or a car without insurance. Why would you enter into a marriage contract for the rest of your life without insurance? In our second part of the series, we talked about the rights of people who live together without the benefit of marriage. We also talked about domestic partnerships and common law marriage. This week, we will discuss marriage. What are the legal benefits of marriage? And there are a lot of benefits. This week, we're exploring that, and we want you to be part of the conversation. Write this down. My executive producer, Stacy Royster, is standing by to take your calls and to answer your tweets and to pass them on. Call us at 1-800-450-76. That's 1-800-450-7876. Tweet us at LawTalkEM. Like us at Law Talk with Ethel Mitchell on Facebook. And check out my website at LawTalkwithethelmitchell.com. Let's get started. Valentine's Day, many of you received flowers, candy, cards, romance, and LOVE. The Retail Advertising and Marketing Association says that over $13 billion, that's $1 billion, is spent expressing our love in the United States each year. Lots of people get engaged each year, especially on Valentine's Day. According to the National Center for Health Statistics, over 2.1 million people get married each year. Marriage is not just a social or a religious institution, however. Marriage is a legal institution. Marriage confers many protections, rights, and benefits. Attorney Sharon Theodore Lewis is our studio guest this week, and she is going to talk to us about the legal advantages of being married and staying married. But first, I must remind you that what you hear on this show is for information purposes only. No attorney-client relationship is established by anything said on this show. Each person's circumstances are different, and you must seek individual counsel for any situation for which you need legal advice. So, let's talk to Attorney Sharon Theodore Lewis. Sharon is a graduate of Howard University, where she obtained a Bachelor of Arts degree in economics. She received her law degree from the Washington College of Law at American University. She has been engaged in the active practice of law for more than 20 years and has a general litigation practice in the District of Columbia and Maryland with a focus on family law and bankruptcy law. Attorney Lewis is also a professor at Bowie State University. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ethel, and good morning, listeners.
Attorney Lewis, tell us about the legal benefits conferred by marriage. There's so many. Let's start with property rights. What property rights are unique to married couples?
Well, good. That's a good place to start. And if you think you're talking about it's Valentine's Day and many couples get married on this day, and one of the first major purchases that couples do when they get married is buying that marital home.
Yes.
And that's the home that's going to be with you theoretically for the rest of your life or the marriage. One of the major benefits of being married and buying a home is that you purchase that home as tenants by the entireties.
What does that mean?
What it means is that both the husband and wife, they own this home, they have an undividable interest in this home, and they have what's called a right of survivorship. So that this home cannot be attacked by the creditor of one spouse or the other. One spouse dies, and immediately the entire property goes to the surviving spouse.
And that's without probate?
That's without probate.
That's without anything?
That's not anything. It becomes yours, completely yours immediately upon the death of your spouse.
Okay, and during your lifetime, if you own not just a house, can you also own bank accounts by tenancy by the entirety?
You can own bank accounts in some states by that provision as well.
And tell me, if you would explain to our listeners, exactly what do you mean in terms of creditors can't attack the tenancy by the entirety?
So let's say prior to marriage, one spouse incurred some debt in that spouse's name only, and they have issues paying that creditor. The creditor sues and wants to collect on that debt. And here in Maryland State, if a judgment's given on a debt, it becomes a lien on a home. Mm-hmm. And theoretically, a creditor could force you to go to foreclosure to collect on that lien.
Mm-hmm.
But once you own the property by tenants by the entireties, they're not able to do that.
And is that true even if the debt is incurred by one of them during the marriage?
That's so as well. Even if the debt's occurred by one spouse during the marriage, the property cannot be attached by a creditor.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So listeners, I want you to understand that. That means that if your spouse has a judgment, not just credit, but an actual judgment
Correct.
against him or her, then the creditor cannot attach the house
Absolutely.
and force the sale.
Absolutely.
And that
Absolutely.
is unique only to marriage.
Only to marriage. You've got to get married to get the tenancy by the entireties.
Okay, so people who are not married don't have that benefit.
No, if you're not married and you buy a home, you can own it as joint tenants, which is different from tenants by the entirety.
But you don't get the creditor
You
protection.
don't get the protection, no.
That's very, very important.
Absolutely
That
not.
is very, very important.
Yeah.
Now let's go to job benefits. What benefits do married couples get that other couples may not get?
There are a slew of benefits you get from your employer as a result of marriage, and I'm just going to mention a few of them for you today. Especially if you work for the federal government, there are all types of benefits. Let's start with pension, retirement accounts.
Okay.
Pensions, 401ks, IRAs, anything that's obtained during the marriage is marital property. And once you are an employee, let's say, of the federal government system, you would be entitled to things like survivor spouse benefits, for instance.
Excellent. Okay.
If you're also entitled, if you're under the civil service retirement system, you will be entitled to an annuity as well. Those are some of the benefits you can get. Not to mention health insurance. Don't forget, very important health insurance benefits. As a matter of fact, if you're employed under the federal system and the employed spouse dies, the surviving spouse is entitled to that health coverage.
Even after the spouse had died?
Even after the spouse has died. And the government continues to pay the deceased spouse's portion of that insurance.
Oh, that's huge. I didn't even know that.
Yes.
That is huge. Yes. And I understand also that if you are married and one of you works for, or both of you work for different employers, you can kind of shop for which one is the best medical coverage?
Absolutely, the benefits package. You can compare plans and choose which plan is the best. And you may choose to opt to, for one employee because they provide more, maybe pre-tax contributions to an IRA account, for instance. Okay. That's a biggie. That'll help, and the spouses save more money and perhaps put away a bigger chunk to the other spouse who's not employed. So definitely those benefits are very important.
Yes. I want you to, our listening audience, to really follow us on this. What about benefits that some employers offer, like child care plans or anything like
child
that?
care plans? There are also benefits in terms of healthcare spending accounts. Those are also benefits that, both parties can get.
Both
from
parties
one.
can use
Correct.
that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I understand also that if you have a spouse who does not work, the working spouse can actually establish an IRA or individual retirement account for the non-working spouse.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, we're running right into the tax benefits. You can have an IRA if you have a spouse who's not working. You can establish an IRA account for the non-working spouse, and that allows you to get even bigger tax benefits because if you can write those off on your taxes. That's so huge. So you have a spouse, an IRA for the non-working spouse, and then as well the working spouse has his IRA.
Okay.
So definitely that's a big benefit.
That is a very big benefit. We are talking with attorney Sharon Theodore Lewis on Law Talk with Ethel Mitchell. I'm your host, attorney Ethel Mitchell. Tell us, listeners, what do you think is the best legal benefit of marriage? Go to my website, lawtalkwithethelmitchell.com, and tell us. You can even vote on whether you think marriage is legally beneficial. Call us at 1-800-450-7876 or tweet us at LawTalkEM to join the conversation. Continuing with the benefits of being married, as far as taxes are concerned, tell us about those, please.
Well, some of the other benefits, just staying along with the concept of the IRA, if you have a spouse who's not working, for instance, you can start an account for that spouse as well. But more important, if both spouses are working and one spouse has an employer that offers pre-tax contributions, then you can put the maximum pre-tax contributions for the spouse that's working with that employer. And then that leads not only to tax savings, but it allows the other spouse to put even more money into another joint IRA for both spouses.
Okay.
So so you get your tax write-off from pre-tax dollars, and then you get, of course, more contributions because, for one thing, keep in mind, if you're putting in an IRA together as a spouse, you can increase the amount as a married couple that you can put into an IRA.
Okay.
So that allows for even bigger tax savings.
Bigger savings.
Absolutely.
And I understand too that if one spouse makes considerably or makes less than the other spouse, you can kind of even it out by filing jointly a little bit.
Right. You definitely get benefits from filing jointly. As a matter of fact, if, say, for instance, one spouse loses money on a business, so there's lower income or loses some business income, there are certain deductions they cannot take. But the other spouse who has a higher income can take all of those losses in his income because they're filing jointly.
You all listen to that, listeners. That's important for you to know. So it's not always bad that maybe one spouse makes less than the other.
Correct. Absolutely. And then think about it, charitable contributions as well.
Yes.
If you make charitable contributions, we're limited by the amount of contributions we can claim based on our income. So if you put your joint income together, that raises the amount of charitable contributions you can qualify for that year.
Okay.
So that's even bigger savings. Because if you were by yourself trying to filing contributions that exceed the limit, they would pass that on to the next year and allow you to take those next year. But if you're filing jointly because you're married, you can increase those contributions that you can deduct.
Very good. Very good. I do mainly estate planning, wills and trusts, and one of the things that I notice that a lot of people don't know is that you can gift up to $14,000 a year to anybody without having to pay a gift tax. And when you're married, you can double that amount. So, for example, I have clients who may want to gift their children a large sum of money, but they know that they'll have to file a gift tax return. People don't realize you can gift double if you are married.
Correct. And especially if you're making gifts to the other spouse, right? I don't believe there's any limitation on the amount that you can give to the other spouse.
That's another very good point.
And there's no
That's
tax
a
consequences.
huge point. You can give your spouse an unlimited amount of money without there being any kind of a gift tax involved.
Right. And this is very important too in terms of preserving the estate. So a spouse who predeceases one spouse can leave unlimited amounts of that estate to the surviving spouse. And that goes, as you know, as Ethel, tax-free.
Yes.
Until, of course, that surviving spouse dies, and then there's a tax consequence to the
total
inheritance,
estate,
the heirs.
Right. And that's for the federal tax. I think we should make that clear.
Right.
Only for the federal estate tax. One day I think I'm going to do a program just on estate taxes or the whole idea of how do you pass on property.
Right.
But the state has an estate tax as well. And Maryland and D.C. both are states that still have an estate tax.
Right.
And so anything over $1 million is subject to being taxed.
And then I know, Ethel, for instance, that it makes a difference whether you're making the gift of a current asset or currently giving that gift or future.
Well, that's another thing that you have to deal with when
Right.
it comes to gifting.
Right.
Yes, that's important to know. So please, let's continue to go back to the tax benefits. When we talked about deducting IRAs and gift taxing and double gifting allowed and filing married jointly, there is one downside, however, that I think our listeners should be aware of, and that is if you sign a joint return, you become legally responsible for whatever is on that return and financially responsible for the tax that might be owed.
That's true. That's absolutely
important
correct.
to know.
That's important to know. That's one downside. But the flip side of that is when you're filing jointly, it's less expensive and less work, right? And if you're the spouse that's not charged with getting all the papers together, it's a lot less work for you.
Yes. I want our listening audience to join us. Call us at 1-800-450-7876 if you have any kind of questions on this very important subject. But we're going to continue. Sharon, tell us about other benefits like veterans and military benefits.
There is a slew of benefits you get just in the military, for instance. Let's take an example. And I'm just going to talk about some of the top benefits that you automatically get if you're a married couple in the military. There is, for instance, the Military Spousal Career Advancement Act, and that provides scholarship money for any military spouse who wants to pursue advanced careers in certain areas.
Really?
Like getting a
license.
getting a license, getting certified, or getting their associate's degree.
Oh, that's excellent to know.
That's
so
really
on top of the benefit for the person that's actually in the military,
correct,
the spouse has that additional benefit.
Absolutely,
that's great to know.
Absolutely. So the spouse can, take that opportunity to further their education and get some of that cost subsidized. Another good benefit, of course, is a family services members group life insurance. Serving spouse can get up to $100,000 in life insurance for his spouse, his non-military spouse.
Excellent.
And I think up to $10,000 for each child.
Oh, that's excellent to know.
Excellent support. We also have Patriot expenses. Now, if you have a spouse that wants to pursue a small business, there's specifically loans set aside through the Small Business Administration, and that program helps veterans or even current spouses.
Okay.
With costs of a small business.
Okay. Hold on just a moment, Sharon. I understand there's a telephone call for us. Hello?
Hi. I had a question about the benefits as far as those that would be relegated to people in same-sex marriages or civil unions versus marriages.
Okay. Are you familiar with that, Sharon?
I'm slightly familiar with those. What's your question?
Did you have a particular question about it?
My question was which of these benefits apply, because you gave like an entire list, and I wanted to know, are there some that would not apply in the instance of a civil union versus a marriage?
I see. Thank you.
Well, I'm not very versed in this particular area, but I think I know with the military benefits, for instance, some of those you'd have to inquire specifically, because not all of those would apply in civil unions. Now, I know the federal government has done a much better job with making sure through civil unions that a lot of these benefits apply to the parties in that union.
And I would expect that as marriage becomes available,
correct,
in the different states, the rights of marriages become available. And I think that's what the fight is really about.
Right, and it will no longer be a question or issue once each states recognize marriages between same-sex couples.
Then you would get all of the benefits.
All of the benefits, just as if you were a heterosexual married couple.
Correct. Okay. Thank you. That was an excellent question. Thank you very much. Let's go back to veterans and military benefits. Are there other benefits of being married if you're in the military, Sharon?
Yeah, there's also something called the transfer GI Bill benefits, and this is where the education benefits that would have been given to a military member can be transferred to that spouse, or some of them. Those benefits can be used by the military spouse.
Okay.
So that is really good. And what's really great about this, Ethel, is that spouse, military spouse, can has up to 15 years to use those benefits, even from the date the other spouse retires.
That is,
or stopped its service with the military.
That is good information. As I said, this is all part of my mission as far as I'm concerned, to educate people and empower them by knowing what the law is and how to use it to benefit themselves.
Absolutely.
What other benefits are there?
There's also what's called the Military Spouse Preference Program, and basically that gives the military spouse preference in job vacancies with the Department of Defense.
Okay.
So, a civilian position.
So it's not just the military person or the veteran.
Spouse.
The spouse also gets
the
that.
spouse, right. This is the spouse. This is the spouse of the military spouse. In other words, so the non-military spouse has a preference, gets a preference for employment vacancies with the Department of Defense, and these are for civilian positions.
Okay.
And also today's the whole housing allowance concept. Once you get married, as military personnel know, you get a housing allowance, and it's based on whether you're single or married. Obviously, your allowance is even greater if you're married. So that's something that's an immediate benefit. Something for spouses as well, you get the military ID card. And that military ID card is yours regardless if you stay with your spouse or not. But we're promoting staying with your spouse, if that's the way it works. But that military ID card allows you to get onto the base, get access to the commissary. You get access to all the
discounts
services
at the commissary,
the
too.
Yeah,
Yes.
Absolutely. Access to the legal counsel, discounted legal services for the military.
Do you get health benefits?
And you get health benefits.
And
well, you get your health benefits, right?
Okay.
Spouse gets health benefits.
I did not know that.
Absolutely.
I hope you all are listening, because this is really good information.
And one good point I want to point out: if by chance, your marriage does not survive with a military spouse, let's say he abandons you while you're still married, he's entitled to support you, and it's a violation of the military code if he doesn't.
Oh,
so
really?
there's some added incentive when if there's an issue to ensure that he pays, because it would be in violation of the military.
Yeah, I understand that also. If you have children, the military will take the child support from their pay and make sure you get it.
Absolutely. The military, not only for the children, but they'll also take housing support and award that spouse some of the military members' housing allowance.
Okay.
So that they can,
they will get it and have the benefit of it.
Absolutely.
This is excellent information. You can contact Attorney Sharon Lewis at STL at stlewislaw.com, or telephone her at 240-296-3. You can contact me at 202-772-1988. That's Attorney Ethel Mitchell. I think we're giving you excellent information. There's two other areas I wanted to try and get to before we end. Immigration and criminal law. Tell me what is there about being married that what are the rights involving with those two?
Well, immediately for immigration, if you're married to a spouse that's not a citizen that lives here in the United States, you can apply for citizenship for that spouse immediately. So that's definitely a great benefit.
A big one.
That's the big one on that. As far as criminal goes, if by chance your loving spouse falls afoul of the law, spouses cannot. You have what's called spousal immunity. So one spouse cannot be forced to testify against the other spouse.
Okay.
So all that information you share on the pillow, the bedroom, the pillow talk. Guess what? That stays. If the other spouse wants to keep it quiet and private, it stays that way. They cannot be forced to testify.
They cannot be forced to testify. That's good to know. That is very good to know. Listeners, I think you have received a lot of excellent information. We're not going to go into the divorce area so much because I think that deserves its own show. But certainly there is a difference when couples break up and they are married and when they are not married. Can you just very, very briefly touch on that?
Well, I mean, one major difference if you break up, the type of benefits, for instance, survivor benefits. Survivor benefits is something that a married spouse will get automatically. However, if you're divorced, you're not entitled to the survivor benefits unless it's issued in a court decree as part of the benefits
But
that you
you
get.
can get them in a
But you can. It has,
Okay.
right, it has to be specified by court order that you
Okay.
get those.
That's important for people to know.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And if you're divorced, well, a good benefit, if you're divorced, you're entitled, as a spouse, you're entitled to Social Security benefits.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Your
That's
your
important to
spouse
know.
dies and you get the Social Security survivor benefits. The good thing is, even if you're divorced, you are also it will be entitled to those benefits.
Okay.
And if you do not remarry, if you turn age 60, if you do not remarry before age 60, you'll be able to keep those benefits.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay.
That's good to know.
So you may find yourself in a situation where, you're age 60, you can remarry and still draw survivor benefits from your previous spouse.
Okay.
And you may draw the same benefits as perhaps your spouse's second wife.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't
That's
impact,
interesting.
right?
That's interesting. Okay.
It doesn't impact what you get, does not impact what she gets.
Okay. She or he.
He or
It goes
she, that's
both
right.
ways now.
We're
It
making
goes
that
both
assumption,
ways
that's
now.
right.
Okay.
I, the spouse. correct.
Yes. This is Attorney Ethel Mitchell, and I want to say thank you to Attorney Lewis. You've given us great information. She's taught us about the entirety broken by creditor claims, to make all kinds of retirement benefits.
Right.
You have been a wealth of information, and I want to name if you have certain things in place. So I really encourage everyone to give me a call to set up your documents. This is Attorney Ethel Mitchell at 202-772-1988, and come back next week. We've got a whole new program on madness and an agent who's going to talk about life in the NEA. Thank you very much.
My
Thank you,
pleasure.
Attorney
Thank you. This was
Lewis.
fun.
Yes. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Law Talk with Ethel Mitchell. Be sure to tune in next Saturday at 11:30 a.m. for another informative broadcast. To reach Attorney Mitchell, you may do so by calling 202-772-1988. That's 202-772-1988. Or log on to her website, www.lawtalkwithethelmitchell.com.